Good afternoon. Assalamu alaikum. Peace be upon you and thank you for watching. This is the first part of a series of videos that I plan to make discussing the authenticity of the Quranic text. The reason that prompts me to discuss this topic is the fact that a few Christian apologists and other people of various affiliations have been trying to cast doubt and raise questions about this fact, the fact of the authenticity of the Quranic text. The Muslim faith is based primarily on the text of the Quran. And I can make a bold statement at the beginning and from the get-go right now that there is no religious text or historical document from that time, I mean the time of revelation of the Quran, that has been preserved nearly as much as the Quran has been preserved. Not even close to the degree of scrutiny of the preservation of the Quran. We can make this bold statement and we have the evidence to back it. A few Christian apologists such as J. Smith and a person by the name of Ismail who has a YouTube channel titled Don't Convert to Islam, and the channel of Acts 17 apologists, which is owned by David Wood and others, Nabil Qureshi, all these people amongst others try to cast doubt about the authenticity of the Quran. The problem is that these people who are discussing this major topic have no academic background in Islamic studies. These are very naive, ignorant people who are very green to this topic. They don't know the Arabic language. They have not studied the Islamic tradition with regards to the historical documentation pertaining to the preservation of the Quran. They don't memorize the Quran. They don't know anything about the different modes of recitation of the Quran. They are basically totally oblivious, totally green, totally ignorant to the multiple and the multitude of disciplines and sciences pertaining to this holy book, this magnificent book that humanity has not witnessed the likes of which. We are totally confident, absolutely confident about the authenticity of the text of the Quran, and that not a single letter or a vowel or even a diacritical mark is missing. Now, these people who try to question the authenticity of the Quran, they usually try to go to the many manuscripts of the Quran that have been unearthed over the past century, and they try to point out any kind of variation from the current text, and hopefully we'll be able to discuss these claims that they are making in detail. But they fail and they deliberately avoid telling their viewers that the main way and the major way of preservation of the Quran is based on the fact that from the time of revelation of the Quran, the Prophet, peace be upon him, urged his companions, his disciples, to memorize it, and they competed with each other in memorization of the Quran. They recited the Quran in their prayers, in their 5 prayers. Most of them completed the whole Quran recitation every month, and some of them completed the whole Quranic recitation every 10 days. The whole book would be recited over and over again. Some of them even would complete recitation of the whole book in every 3 days. They would teach it to their children. The Quran was the center of their personal life, their social life, the political life of the Muslim nation, the business interactions, their disputes, all were solved by the laws of the Quran. The Quran was applied in their daily life. It was a practical text. It was quoted in every single discipline that emerged out of the Islamic studies, as part of the Islamic studies, the books of exegesis, the books of the traditions of the Prophet, the books of Islamic law, the books of Islamic history, every single discipline that falls under Islamic studies extensively quoted the Quran from the dawn of Islam, from the beginning. Not only that, but the Prophet had multiple disciples who acted as his scribes and secretaries, who wrote down the Quran immediately as it was revealed. And the leader of that committee was a companion by the name of Zayd ibn Thabit. The Prophet had, according to the Muslim scholar Al-Azmi, who counted the names of the different scribes, Prophet Muhammad had more than 50 scribes, writing down the Quran, writing down letters to various leaders, writing down other edicts that the Prophet made or treaties. So he had at his disposal 50 scribes, and he would call Zayd and other scribes anytime, day or night, to write down any verses that were revealed. So imagine this text that is memorized by the Prophet, is memorized by the scribes, is written down immediately as it is revealed, is recited in the prayer 5 times a day. The companions competed in memorization and understanding and explanation of the text. They taught it to their children. Their life, personal life, social life, economic, political life, everything in life was based on this text. And on top of that, Muslims have more manuscripts than all the manuscripts discovered in the history of Christianity. Christians boast the fact that they have 5,500 Greek manuscripts, and they have 10,000 Latin manuscripts, and they have another 5,000 manuscripts in different languages, such as the Coptic language, the Syriac language, the Ethiopian language. But they fail to tell their people that Muslims have 250,000 manuscripts, early manuscripts of the Quran. Christianity does not own a single manuscript dating to the 1st century after Christ. They don't. The first 100 years, no manuscripts are available for Christian scholars to study the history of the biblical text. They have nothing, zero. From the 2nd century, from between 100 years to 200 years, Christians only have small fragments that would not be even the size of a credit card. And these are all facts that are stated in books authored by Christian scholars and scholars of textual criticism of the Bible. But we as Muslims have manuscripts from the 1st century and from the first 50 years after the death of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, that cover the entire text of the Quran. So on top of this very strong oral tradition, where the Prophet taught every single letter of the Quran to his companions, and they taught it to their children, and we have sound, connected chains of narration going all the way back to the Prophet Muhammad, all over the Muslim world, thousands of chains of narration. This person received the Quran just as he heard it from the person in the previous generation and in the previous generation, going all the way back to the Prophet Muhammad. We have these thousands of chains of narration leading to the Prophet Muhammad. And every reciter who has a chain of narration connecting him to the way the Prophet Muhammad recited the Quran, every reciter recites the same text. Whether you find this reciter in China, or in the United States, or in the Middle East, or in Europe, or in Africa, or in Australia, bring any reciter of the Quran who has a sound chain of narration, keeping this oral tradition, going all the way back to the Prophet Muhammad, with connected circles. This chain of narration has no gaps in it. So all the way back continuously to the Prophet Muhammad, we know how, not only the text, but how he actually pronounced each letter. And some letters are elongated, some are short vowels, some are long vowels. We know all these things, where to stop and where to start. All these things are preserved for us. This is not available to any other religion on earth. We have a privilege, we are privileged, and we are so lucky as Muslims to have this very strong oral tradition that is on top of that supported by a written text that was written during the life of the Prophet Muhammad himself. This is not available for any other religion on earth, and I challenge anyone to prove me wrong, whether he's a Christian or a Jew or an atheist or whatever, because we have facts. I have multiple books, and I've read multiple books on this subject, and I've studied this subject throughout most of my life, and I challenge anyone to prove me wrong. So this is just the introduction, and in the next video I will mention to you some quotations from Christian scholars, people who are within the academic circles studying, who have devoted their lives to Islamic studies, who have studied the early history of the Quran, who have studied the early history of Islam. And let's see what those scholars say, because I personally cannot accept the words of an ignorant, childish individual who knows almost nothing about the Quran and its background and its history, trying to make claims that the Quranic text is corrupt, while the major Orientalist Christian scholars specializing in Islamic studies say the exact opposite and prove to us as Muslims, and they testify to the authenticity of the Quran. I will put a link to the PowerPoint presentation that I prepared containing 20 quotations from 20 different, eminent, renowned Christian scholars from universities around the world, saying their testimonies, documenting their testimonies with regards to the authenticity of the Quranic text. So please press on the link below, and those quotations, I will read them out in the next video, part 2 of this series. Thank you.